Well, Algebra, we have reached the last review before we dive into our textbook to new content. So I wanted to start or end with this. This is, you could see here, I put review-ish 11, and that's because this is not always covered in 6th grade math. It's not always covered in pre-algebra to the extent that we could, and as the year got crunched last year, there's certain things that got glanced over. So I wanted to make sure we really understood this well. We're talking about writing ratios. We'll talk about what that is, and then and proportions, and then using proportions to solve. Okay, so a ratio is just a comparison all right. Did I spell that right? You guys double check me, all right? Of two quantities. Most often, you're going to see this written as we'll say A to B. The way we read this is A to B. But it can also be written as a fraction. Okay, it's the same idea. Ratio is a mathematical term for a fraction, but you'll see this a lot. Anytime you see a scale or a model of something, if you see like a model plane or even like on the side of a Lego box, they'll say like, the scale 1 to 2, meaning the picture they're giving you is half the size of the actual one. If you buy a model, they'll say 1 to 50. They have a model car. The real thing is 50 times larger. A proportion then is an equation. An equation that states that two ratios are equal. Okay? Let's see this little balance scale where we're trying to make them equal. When a fraction is equal to a fraction. And the beautiful thing is we can use ratios to find out things about a bigger situation. Let me give you one simple example. If I were to ask you guys right now, what is your favorite TV show? Okay, and let's say I gave you a list of 5 shows. Okay, and most of you picked show A. Okay, so let's say, there's 15 of you. Let's say like 10 out of 15 picked show A. Then I could then say, hey, I think that I could use that information to tell something about the other students in the middle school. If 10 out of 15 said that they like show A, then in the entire middle school, if there's 75 of you, I should be able to determine, I think that would mean this many out of 75 would like that TV show, using a proportion. Okay? So this is what this looks like. Now, I don't know, again, different teachers will do this differently. In the notes, in the beginning, it said use cross products. Okay, and cross product literally means multiply across. Okay, you don't go straight across, you go diagonally. Okay, so typically this is the way I'm going to write it. I'll do 6 times x, which is 6x, and 11 times 30, which equals 330. Okay, I know some teachers do that in a different way. They just write one number up here and one number up here, which is the same. Some people would call this like sometimes they'll do like a little butterfly. They'll do it this way, and they'll write what those equal. So 9 times 31, 279. And then 2x times 17 is, 4, carry the 1, 34. 34x equals. And you kind of see it written in 2 different ways. This is really the same thing, no matter which way you do it. Okay, again, people call this one the butterfly method because it looks like it could be a butterfly there. But the idea is you're multiplying the top on the left by the bottom on the right, the bottom left, top right, and multiplying. And once you have these set up, we're going to solve using inverse operations, meaning to get x by itself, I divide by 6 on both sides. Okay, and we are going to get, if I do my math right here, 55. Okay. On the other side, divide both sides by 34. A lot of times when we cross multiply, by the way, you're going to get larger numbers. And so this would be a situation where I'm okay. I don't have mine up here right now. I'm okay if you pull out a calculator to do some of these. Okay. This one wasn't too bad to try to figure out and try to understand what's going on and kind of do that. I do want to remind you that all of you are capable of doing this. It might have been a while since you have done it, but you can solve this way, even on ones that seem to be a little harder, right? Just as way of reminder, even the way I'm writing this, it's 279 divided by 34, so the denominator comes outside. You're putting that into this one. 34 doesn't go into 27, so really we have to shoot big on this even to solve this one. And again, this is one of those things where you started working it out carefully. Long dramatic pause, sorry. Or you can grab your calculator and you're like, hey, 279 divided by 34. Either way, this one's not a nice answer. If you ever hear me say that, what I mean by that is, I think typically students like their answers to be whole numbers. We were just talking about whole numbers in the previous lesson. Non-ending decimals. Okay, sorry, not having decimals at all, just a complete number like 5. You know, you want something like, 55, not 8.20588 ... like it continues to go on and on. Okay, so if I ever say not nice, I'm thinking probably from your perspective, maybe not dealing with these decimals. All right. So these can get a little more complicated. Notice on these, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cross multiply. So these two are going to get multiplied together. It's 4 times x minus 3. And I'm writing it this way on purpose. I want to talk about that in a second. And then 8 times x. The equal sign goes in the middle. So make sure it started off with an equal sign. I don't want to make that disappear and like magically like everything's just together. No. There's an equal sign here. Okay. It goes right in the middle of those two. Again, if this is helpful, these two went together. Here's 4x minus 3. And then these two went together over here, 8x. All right. Now, I didn't finish on this side, and I paused because I want to make sure you see this. I wrote it this way so you guys could see that the distributive property is on the side. I have to do 4 times x and 4 times negative 3, which is 12, in order to solve this problem. Okay. Once it's set up like this, this goes back to us solving equations. In order to solve an equation, I want to put all of my variables on one side. So I subtract 4x from both sides. And you get 4x equals negative 12. Divide by 4. And x equals negative 3. And I would do the same thing over here as well. So 4 times m is 4m. And on this side, you got 5 times m minus 6. Notice on this side, again, the distributive property is going to come into play. We'll do this in pink here. So you got 5m minus 30 equals 4m. Okay. Subtract 5m from both sides. And you get negative 30 equals negative m. Please be careful on this step. Okay. A lot of times students get caught here. Okay. We never want to put all of our letters in the same way. So notice on this one, I moved my letters over to the left. To the left side here. Okay. And my number that didn't have a letter was by itself. Over here, I moved all my letters to the right side and left my 30 by itself. Okay. Now this says negative m equals negative 30. There's a negative here, so I'm going to divide by a negative 1. So that I get rid of my negative, because I don't want to know what negative m equals. I want to know what m equals. Divide by negative 1, and a negative divided by negative is positive. So m equals 30. Okay? The nice thing about these problems is you can always double check. Right? What a wonderful thing for you guys as students, that if you take the time, if you have the time, which during DLP I would say you do, I don't rush you on turning it. You have till midnight to do your homework. So if you guys take your time, you can make sure. But especially like on a test or quiz, what I would encourage you is don't like plug this in and make sure, is 30, let's like double check here, is 30 divided by 5, is that equal to, I'm asking, is that equal to 30 minus 6 divided by 4? Like our 30 divided by 5 is 6, 30 minus 6 is 24, 24 divided by 4 is 6. Ah, that worked. So we want to look for those things and check those things because if it works, it's really nice for us. Okay. So I've got some tries. As before, I want you to pause the video and then try the problem on your own. See how you do when you come back. The answers will be up here. All right, so on these you should get 17 and 6. You can kind of see my work here. If it doesn't make sense, I do want to remind you guys every single day, right? I am on Zoom during these class sessions. If you're watching this video and you got one of these wrong, this is a great time to ask for some help, and I would love to walk through any of these with you. All right, I just wanted you to see that sometimes they can get a little crazier, okay? And it's not something that I think need to be overwhelming to us if we're careful and organized with our work. You know, sometimes you have to do the distributive property on both sides. So you can kind of see here on this one. So I'm doing negative 3 times 4x plus 4 and 2 times 2x plus 14. And I'd have to do the distributive property on both sides. So over here, negative 12x minus 12 equals, on the other side, 4x plus 28. And then I have to solve. Okay, so I'm not trying to leave this one. I'm actually not going to do this one with decimals. I don't want us to worry about it right now and get overwhelmed with the decimals. But the same idea, listen, even if it looks more complicated, all you have to do is be organized and take your time. Okay. And if you're going to do that carefully, okay, you might get decimal answers, and that's okay. I'm going to divide 40 by negative 16. That's going to give me x. And I actually have to do some math here, right? 16 times 2 is 32, and so this is going to be 2.5. X equals negative 2.5. So you might get decimal answers, and you might have lots of kind of distributive property, but what I don't want you to do is look at a problem like this and be like, I don't get it, I don't know. If you understand the basic ones, this is the same concept. It just takes a lot of like writing out carefully of the work. And my encouragement is like, do that, right? Think of how much paper we're saving as you're not getting lots of worksheets, and I'm not printing things out for you, and you're not printing things out. When it comes to this kind of stuff, we're doing things online, take out a piece of paper, write down the problem carefully, and follow through with it consistently, okay? When we are writing proportions, you make sure you're consistent. So a lot of times when we have word problems, a lot of times students don't know where to put things. So on this one, question first, it says, how many tomatoes do you need for 5 pints? So I want to know the number of tomatoes, we're going to put a T there, for 5 pints of salsa. Okay? This is a great thing, actually, if you do anything with cooking. My wife and I, we like sweets, okay? Which means, therefore, we like baking. Because when you bake, you get sweets. And, that makes sense, right? So we're sitting there, and we're like, all right, the recipe says, this is going to make 24 cupcakes, which, as much as I'd love to eat 24 cupcakes, it's not going to be very good for my, good looks, right? My nice figure, all right? So maybe we scale that back, and we're like, all right, we only want to make 2 cupcakes. So, all of a sudden, we've got, how much do we need if we're breaking this down into, a 1/6 of the size, or an 1/8 of the size, or half the size, a 1/12 of the size, whatever it is. Okay. So in this case, we've got how many tomatoes make 5 pints? Well, we know that it takes 30 tomatoes for 12 pints. Okay, 30 tomatoes for 12 pints. And so notice what I did is I put, and let me color it because tomatoes are red, right? Okay, tomatoes are on top on both of these. Now it doesn't matter if they're both on bottom, that's fine. But they need to be like consistent. They need to be in the same place. Tomatoes go on top or tomatoes go on the bottom, right? Both cases. And this is pints. 12 pints here, 5 pints here. And now I can cross multiply this to solve. Okay? So in order to solve this, I would cross multiply. Sometimes, by the way, if you set these up and you think carefully about how you set them up, you can save yourself a little bit of work, okay? Because maybe certain things will cancel out. So next we're going to go ahead and divide both sides by 12. And again, in this situation, you're welcome to pull out your calculator, okay? Got mine in my back pocket. Got 150, okay? Divided by 12. I think you guys can handle some of these. Again, if you sat there and did 150 divided by 12, I think you guys would be able to solve that just fine. Okay, and I want to encourage that, but I also want to make sure that you guys understand that you know how to do these. But again, a calculator is a great tool, and I want to find the balance. I want you guys to know in these videos, if you ever see me using a calculator, it's mainly because I'm trying to save time for you guys in this video. I'm not saying that you need to always use a calculator, all right? Again, you can kind of work this one out on your own. So I do have one for you to try, and what I'm going to do in the video is I'm not going to solve this one. We'll talk about it at the end. I'd like you to hop on Zoom when you're done with this question, and we'll take a look at the answer together and make sure you're doing it right.